From UFOs to psychic powers and government conspiracies, history is riddled with unexplained events. You can turn back now or learn the stuff they don't want you to know. A production of iHeartRadio.
Hello, welcome back to the show. My name is Matt.
My name is Noel.
They call me Ben. We're joined, as always, with our super producer, Paul Mission Control Deckett. Most importantly, you are here. That makes this the stuff they don't want you to know. We were talking about this a little bit off air. What is your favorite fruit, gentlemen?
I like a raspberry, with a nice fresh raspberry, fresh in quotation fingers, I guess, today. But I usually don't have too much trouble with getting a nice, juicy raspberry. I also used to be really kind of freaked out by strawberries, but now I love them when they're ripe. I'm not going to explain what freaked me out. It's too random.
Okay. Well,
I'm scared of strawberries.
I'm changing mine from our discussion, by the way, because I forgot about a delicious, juicy, incredible black or red grape. That is probably one of my favorites.
I don't F with grapes. Something about the pop. Yeah, I don't know, it's a texture thing for me. Yeah, it gets to me.
A naturally ripened grape.
Mm-hmm. The caviar of the vine, they call it. No one calls it that.
Someone might.
What's yours, Ben?
Oh, gosh. Well, I'm super basic, Matt. I'm glad you asked. Obviously, the pineapple.
Good choice.
That's not basic at all. That's the fanciest of fruits. We'll get into it later.
Yeah. You know, for a lot of people, the idea of buying produce is, I think for most people across the globe, the idea of buying produce, vegetable or fruit is a basic day-to-day thing. Here in the United States, it can be difficult to buy fresh food. Depending on where you live, finding fresh food can be darn near impossible, you know?
Yeah, I mean, I live in kind of a bit of a food desert, but luckily I have a car and there are amazing grocery stores just, 10, 15 minutes away. But some gas stations in areas like that will have like the sad bowl of fruit, the kind of withered bananas, you know it, you hate to see it, but some people that is, the access they have.
Yeah, and every once in a while you'll get to go to that glorious mecca of partner swapping Trader Joe's and really get some good stuff.
Mm-hmm.
That's where you go for your fresh produce.
That's where all the pineapples hang out, the upside down pineapples.
Maybe the freeze-dried pineapples. Yeah, oh, okay.
That was a good one. That's a good joke. Also, tonight's episode is based on a conversation we had off air about something that went viral on TikTok. The idea that a peel is meant to somehow conspire against you when you buy produce. We'll be right back. Here are the facts. Okay, produce. It's a big term, right? It's a big word. It means a lot of stuff. Every kind of fruit, vegetable, grain, oat you could imagine. Basically, if it's not an animal, then it's produce, right?
Yeah, if it's not an animal and it's not processed.
Important point, Matt. If it's an orange by itself, it's produce. If it is a carton of orange juice, then it is no longer produce, right?
Even if it's in, like fresh squeezed, right? Because it is processed. I mean, even just the act of squeezing is a form of processing, even if it's not like that kind that comes from the dreaded concentrate.
What a great point, though, because if produce is packaged, like the sad banana, right, in its own Ziploc bag or whatever, if produce is packaged, it can still be produce. If the pineapple is cut and put in a little plastic cup, it can still be pineapple. I think it's when the thing itself is messed with, that means it's no longer produce. Would we say that's accurate?
That's my understanding, yeah.
I think so, but it's hard to get into also because if you think about something, I'm going to say the brand name like Quaker Oats, right, that you get in the large container. Those are oats. Those are Mostly unprocessed, but they've gone through lots of processes, I guess. No, they are processed. I'm wrong. Okay.
But Matt, I see what you're thinking on that, because it's a little confusing, because to me, if it was a freshly squeezed orange juice, then to me it's like not processed in a way that involves other substances. It's just, taking the essence of a thing and like turning it into a different like consistency. It's like mashing a potato. It's still a potato.
Well, it's so complicated because there's so many different types of processed orange juicing you can do, right? We did that whole episode. We talked about, I think it was Simply Orange, the one that completely breaks down the orange and into all of its constituent parts and then recombines them magically in a way that makes the perfect orange juice.
I'm sorry, what does my Simply Orange do? I don't like the sound of that.
Well, it's the problem is it's not simple.
It is just oranges. It's just not simple.
Yeah.
Okay,
it's
fair
kind of
enough.
like how the Quaker Oats guy gets younger every 10 years. Have you noticed that? He used to be old as hell.
Sure.
And now he's like a waiter in Los Angeles. It's nuts.
Is this like The Fly type situation where they put the orange into like a giant weird portal machine and it just like breaks it apart into its atoms and then puts it back together? God forbid a fly or some other creature should get into the Simply Orange juicing machine.
Simply Fly. Yeah.
Exactly.
So the U.S. has an ongoing problematic love affair with hyper-sweetened, heavily processed food. But the U.S. is still a global player in produce, and it imports a ton of stuff. A lot of it comes from Mexico, Peru, Chile, Guatemala, Costa Rica, and those same countries also send a lot of vegetables to the United States. So the idea is, if it's not an animal, if it's not heavily processed, if it is fruit or veg, it is produce.
Yeah, and the World Health Organization, you know them, they recommend people consume 400 grams of fruits and vegetables every day.
Ooh, that's
400 grams.
Yeah, it's a lot of grams.
Mm-hmm. And we've read ads for a company before that makes fruits and vegetables in pills, because it's so difficult for many of us to actually get that much of fruits and vegetables in our diet every day as we're going around. Maybe if you're on the go a lot and you're choosing to eat fast food, which I am highly guilty of, not easy to get those fresh vegetables and fruits into you. But there are companies out there that offer alternative ways to get that stuff into you, but nothing beats the real thing.
The real thing being fresh fruits and vegetables, I imagine. Right?
Mm-hmm, mm-hmm.
One would hope. Real, once again, in quotation figures for this episode.
Yeah, the Asian Pacific region dominates the fresh fruits market. That population imports the most fresh fruits. If you ask your non-U.S. friends, they will have some pretty not great opinions about fruit and veg in the United States. And we've seen it. If you travel to a different country, Noel, you can speak to this. Like in Spain, the typical raspberry or the typical strawberry or just the typical asparagus is a little bit different from the kind of stuff you would eat in the United States.
Well, it's just everywhere. They have these massive city markets, and it's a much more walkable and busable and, public transportable city. And then I imagine in the outskirts in Spain and around Europe, it's almost even more prevalent in terms of being able to get access to fresh fruits and vegetables because there's such a, agrarian kind of, economy and agrarian sort of culture there. But here in America, it's very spotty. It's very, kind of patchy, I guess would be a better word.
Well, we just talked about how, we didn't say this, by the way, only 1 in 10 Americans actually get 400 grams of fresh fruits and vegetables every day. So we're already kind of not doing a great job getting the stuff in us, but we're also not doing a great job making the stuff. As we said, we import most of the fresh fruits and vegetables that we have in grocery stores. And really think about, how do I get a bunch of fresh strawberries grown and then shipped from another country to the United States through all of those avenues, on ships, on trains, maybe on boats, whatever you got to do to get it someplace, temperature controlling the thing the entire time. And then when it hits the store, it's supposed to be fresh.
Dude, I mean, I had a car full of Costco stuff yesterday and had to go straight to an appointment and was literally worried that them sitting in the hot car for a couple hours was going to be, bad news. It boggles my mind how we depend on that level of infrastructure and what's the word, logistics to get this stuff, God knows how many miles, from origin point to our fruit baskets. Fruit bowls.
That's awesome, though, that you had that. You had those vegetables or those fruits in your car. You had a mobile greenhouse. You know what I mean? People used to kill each other to have that capability.
Yeah, but I had a cucumber melt when I was in Ohio. It melted from the time. Yeah,
I like that phrase. Yeah.
I think it was frozen or something. And when I picked it up at the little island grocery store that I was at, it feels great. I was like, oh, it's got some good tension in this cucumber.
Yeah.
Got it in the car, got it back to the house, put it in the fridge, walked away for a second, came back, went to cut it for my son, and the dang thing was melted. It became like gelatinous, weird, gross,
man. But that's the thing too. It's not sufficient to just freeze things to transport them those long distances, because that creates a different product. That creates a different consistency. And when you buy frozen berries or frozen vegetables, that's one type of thing, and you know what consistency you're going to get. But the presumption when you're buying stuff that's in your, produce department in the grocery store is that it hasn't been frozen.
Yeah. That's the idea, right? In earlier evenings, people were only able to eat stuff that grew near them. This is nuts. No one ever thinks about it. We got all these stereotypes about Irish people and potatoes. Your Irish ancestors, if you go far enough back, they would have been thoroughly baffled by the idea of a potato.
The modern potato?
Yeah, they would have not known what was going on. Your Italian, Korean, or Chinese predecessors, depending on your lineage, they would have lost their minds if they saw a tomato. Italy is still dealing with that as a culture and as a cuisine. The idea of getting local, then regional, and global trade networks changed the interaction of humans with produce. I mean, it's nuts. Check out the episode on the Columbian Exchange. Check out our earlier episode on corn. Corn has a ridiculous history.
I know, man. Once they started doing Freak on a Leash and all over TRL, it was over for them.
Yeah, and then they made a podcast.
Did they?
Yeah.
A Corncast?
Ridiculous History.
What? I don't recall having a co-host who is in the band Korn, or who is an anthropomorphized piece of corn. Just Bambola.
No, geez. Thanks, Noel.
Well, let's be real. You're neither of those things. It's just facts.
Well, I do think I rap a little bit better than Jonathan Davis.
But can you go?
No, he can certainly
that is a scat.
Out-sing me.
It's more of a scat than a rap, right? Yeah.
He's a talented man. In the modern evenings, developed countries have leveraged logistics to send all the stuff that you could not get in your neck of the global woods around the planet. Stuff that you simply would have read about, for centuries before about, what would we say, the mid 1800s is when it really became popularized for the average person. Fruits, vegetables, grains across the planet. Now they're delivered directly to your door. Even when they grow out of season, you can also make this stuff shelf stable, and you can only do it because there are some monopolies. There's a little bit of corporatism involved, I think. What we're saying is there is a hidden price to this convenience. What do we mean by hidden price?
Well, I mean, I guess it depends on who you ask. As we've been talking about the logistical magic trick that is the appearance of all of these perishable items from wherever, might actually not just be a simple product of all of those moving parts combined. It's something greater than the sum of those parts. It might actually be something that can't be explained by planes, trains, and automobiles and cargo ships and all of that good stuff that gets us all of these products that we enjoy and or depend on. What if the methods that were used to preserve all this stuff turned out to actually be an issue in and of itself? You know, what if it was unsafe?
Well, yeah, because you're either, in order to achieve the goal of how do I make this tomato more shelf stable for a longer period of time, or this apple to survive longer on the shelf at my local food dealer, well, I can either genetically modify the actual seed and the plant that, the tree that grows the apple, and I can change its traits if I want to. I can apply some kind of product, chemical thing to that apple once it's grown to make sure the exterior of it is safe, right? Because that, if you're messing with genetics, that's the interior you're messing with. If you're spraying it with something, that's the exterior, like a coating of some sort, like we're going to be talking about today. Or it can get even weirder. You can artificially do things to these plants to make them ready to go once they hit the shelves, but not ready to go when they're inside their transport vehicles.
What if there is a conspiracy afoot? We'll pause for a word from our sponsors. Here's where it gets crazy. This is perfect. This is the claim that went viral on social media platforms. It grew like mint, and that is a joke for everybody who has had to deal with mint in their garden. On TikTok, which is kind of the new version of old tabloids like National Enquirer or Weekly World News. They're the ones who published stories about Bat Boy and so on, or like Elvis is alive. He lives in Minnesota and is very good at line dancing, stuff like that.
But now there's like a new Bat Boy every 5 seconds, and it's not just the product of one, weird publication concocting a bizarre story to sell papers. It's like this whole echo chamber that just, like self-perpetuates. It's bizarre. Sorry, we're not here to litigate TikTok and the internet today, but you pointing that out, Ben, I think that's really spot on, and it really made me triggered me, made my brain twitch a little bit.
Yeah. Why can't he just be a bat person?
He stayed a boy forever, it would seem. When does he finally become a Batman?
Batman. Yeah. The claims that we're seeing on TikTok center on the idea of preservation coding in general. The concept that substances applied to fruits will keep them edible from, as you were saying, Matt, the long travel from point A to point Z. And as we're recording this on the evening of August 26, 2024, we see a lot of social media accounts claiming a specific company called Appeal, get it, are part of a grand conspiracy to absolutely screw over innocent fans of produce. It's a
clever name, though.
Yeah, can we spell it out?
It's APEL. I mean, I guess, is it meant to be a pun? Like, hey, we are appealing as a company, but we also deal in things that have appeal. It's to your point, Ben, the more innocuous and maybe silly the name, perhaps sometimes the more nefarious the ends.
Okay, so how do we hear about this? Guess what? TikTok.
But wait.
It's here again, TikTok.
So it's news and fake news all at the same time? I don't understand.
There's an actual company that makes a thing. It's not called Appeal. Appeal's the company. They make, what's the name of the thing they make?
Eddie Peel.
EDIPEL.
Is that a play on Oedipus? Is there some? I don't know. I'm sorry.
It's edible. It's Edipeel.
Okay, my mistake.
Okay,
see where my mind is.
But the idea is real. This is a coating that is supposed to help protect the produce as it's either traveling, to protect it from animals and other pests and things like that. It is like armor for your apples, baby. And it's real and it's a thing. The TikTok part comes in where there are multiple creators making multiple videos that point to this specific company and this substance as being extremely dangerous for human health. And then they take it a step further and say, not only is it dangerous, it is being purposefully produced by somebody like the infamous Bill Gates that created Microsoft and now wants to kill everyone.
That monster.
Yeah. Him and Melinda made a foundation just to ruin your day by doing things like eradicating
malaria,
communicable disease. Yeah.
Yeah. And for sure. I will say this, though, and I don't want to like sound like I'm being coded or something like that. I am inherently suspicious of all people with that degree of wealth. So like I do think that maybe on the surface what they're doing is like quote unquote good. But I also don't really know. And I have to have a healthy amount of skepticism for these types of things with this sort of front of ultimate magnanimity, you know?
I think that's a universal thing. You're
Probably
not
so.
alone. I think most people should be that way. It's not a singular thing because, you know, you see these billionaires and you think, when's the last time they saw a nickel? When's the last time they held a coin and thought, do I need this coin later?
I would love it if Bill Gates like just rolled around with a couple 20s in his pocket and just paid in cash for things whenever he could. That would just make me so happy.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Apparently he only eats McDonald's, though. Like, did you hear that? Like, he really loves McDonald's.
Oh, dude, you know he's got
like
cash.
He rented out an entire fancy like Michelin-starred restaurant for some event and had his people call out and bring him in McDonald's. He did like it's a thing. Yeah.
Does Melinda know?
I imagine she fully supports him in all of his. I mean, it is funny though, considering what we're talking about, right?
Yeah.
I mean, truly,
Yeah.
you know. Yeah.
Didn't they get a divorce?
You think he's a difficult man to be married to?
I imagine statistically, yes.
I don't know the answer to that.
But we'll have to look it up. I think we got some top men on it. The Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation was funded.
He sure did get divorced. Sorry, I
Yeah.
had no idea. Sorry.
Well, you're my top guy. You're on it. I said we had top guys on it.
I'm the guy in the chair.
So, all right. So the Bill and Melinda Gates Foundation is a classic villain in a lot of this conspiracy folklore. And the concept here is that a peel through the technology, Eddie peel, or the proprietary coding, is somehow after you, anyone who is not a billionaire. And the implications, like, why would these people do this? The implication is that eating this produce coated with this stuff will either lead to sterilization or increase your chances of cancer, decrease your intelligence, or it will make you addicted to consuming insert product here, which is, these are heavy claims, right? Have you guys encountered any of this? Like these claims, first off, have you encountered these claims? And then secondly, do you believe any of them?
First of all, I would say I encountered it for the first time on Instagram on Reels. And it was specifically talking about a peel, which then led me down the rabbit hole of trying to really understand what the heck it is.
The process or the coating?
Mm-hmm, because it was one of those videos that you'll see all over the place where there's an AI voice reading captions that are on the screen with some what seem like random imagery, sometimes maybe even stock imagery. And you're just trying to discern if any of it's true or real. And it's pretty disturbing. I would say the Gates Foundation thing does go back to the population control theories that touch a whole bunch of other, hypotheses and theories that are out there about connecting dots that aren't necessarily there. But it's one of those things that feels like it could be real just enough that it piques your interest. And I think that's one of the reasons that it got shared so many times, at least the particular one that I saw.
And not to make this about those AI generated stories, but aren't those in a way just sort of the new version of those clickbait little stubby kind of stories that were like a paragraph followed by 15 ads and then another little paragraph, and they were usually about celebrity nonsense or some kind of sex tape or this kind of conspiracy, spreading.
Mm-hmm.
But it's interesting because I've gotten to the point where when I hear that voice and I think it's one of those, I'm like, nope, I just can't. It's bad news.
I love those voices. I sit through them because it's something where it's like the apple. Considered apple pie. Apples are from Kazakhstan. Why did Jennifer Lopez divorce Ben Affleck? Mm-hmm. And then it's a bunch of weird stock images. It's a strange Rorschach test. And most of what we're seeing here vibes with, as you were saying, Matt, the earlier accusations against the Gates Foundation. It returns to the idea that obscenely wealthy people are in some sort of cabal to engage with large-scale population control. And the concept there also arrives at the idea of removing the ability to think, right? Similar to, I should say, fluoride poisoning conspiracies. Yeah. And we know that there are provable aspects of this, such as the lead poisoning hypothesis. I don't think it was on purpose, but lead exposure plausibly led to, plausibly created some crimes. It's scary stuff. It's not coming from a clear blue sky. Maybe the most important thing to remember is that wealthy people are no more intelligent than the average person. That's the assumption of these conspiracies, the assignation of some sort of grand chess master, Kissinger level 4D chess. It's just, I don't know, man. Most people are the same everywhere you go.
I just think in general, to your point, Ben, you're right. People are just a little more straightforward than that.
It's a weird thing because this does feel like it's not an altruistic thing. Let's not pretend anything about that. This is a for-profit company that is making a thing that is going to make lots and lots of money and has been making lots of money since, by the way, I think 2018 is around the first time I remember hearing about Appeal when it was associated with avocados.
Mm-hmm.
And NBC was talking about it, and everybody was like, it wasn't even a big deal. Nobody knew. Nobody really cared. It was just, here's a way to preserve a couple of different types of produce a little bit longer with this coating. But in the end, it feels like a good thing. It is a good thing, I think.
I don't know. I think Bill Gates is trying to kill everyone.
I think that's probably the most likely scenario.
By the way, did you hear, according to Vanity Fair and Melinda Gates' own words, one of the main reasons she divorced Bill was because of his work with a guy who had an island.
Ooh.
Know what I'm talking about?
Oh, yeah. I do.
She names names. She says, because one of the myriad number of reasons that she divorced Bill was because of his work with Jeffrey Epstein.
Yeah, from earlier.
Ouch. Yeah. It's Jeff from earlier.
Yeah. And that's from March of 2022.
I had not heard that, Matt. That's wild.
Pretty recent. The foundation continues, though, because we have to realize at that financial threshold, the institution acquires a life of its own, right? So such that a Bill and Melinda could pass away and a Bill and Melinda Foundation could theoretically soldier on. After intense research, the three of us could find no actionable intelligence indicating that Appeal was part of a grand scheme to poison, sterilize, or dumb people down via preservation methods. Just like the eradication of communicable disease, it appears that the foundation itself was donating to things, right? It wasn't necessarily leading research. What most likely happened is someone went into a boardroom and pitched an idea, and someone said yes, right? And the foundation, therefore, assigned some money to it. But we like a face on our villains. We like someone that we can look at when we have a problem. And it's weird because I love that you were pointing out, Matt, how we had the appeal technology as a civilization back in, what did you say, 2018?
2018 is when I first read about it, I think. Maybe it's been around for longer than that, but James Rogers is the guy's name who created Appeal, and then it got backed by at least, the Gates money, and that was a while ago.
And it is an iteration on a theme. We're going to pause for a word from our sponsors, and then when we come back, we're going to learn some weirder stuff about fruit preservation, produce preservation, that goes far, far, far before Bill Gates ever clicked a mouse, clicked at a window. What is our best Bill Gates joke?
Looked out a window?
There we go. We've returned. Here's the truth. People have been coating produce with artificial protective layers for like 1,000 years minimum.
Yeah, let's look at apples as a great example. In 2017, a piece in The Atlantic by Julia Phillips pointed out that apples that you pick right from a tree are, dirty. I mean, anything that grows out of the ground grows out of dirt. And you have a little dirt on it. They are often scarred, pockmarked. They're out there in nature. There might be worms. There might be, animals taking a little bite or whatever. Most plants are able to house organisms when they're left to their own devices in the wild, but also, like, for the most part, I think animals that are eating these things, or if they're growing wild, they're not exactly the same as like the American consumer in terms of like their expectation of perfection.
Very true. There's also something to think about here with apples. If an apple falls from the tree on which it was grown and then hits the ground, yes, it could be dirty. Yes, you might not even use that in the bushels of apples that you're collecting. But when do you pick the apple? When is the apple fresh and ready and ripe to be picked and then sold? That is a whole other question we're going to get into here, because if you pick it at the right time, it is almost ripe enough to be on the shelf. But
the right time is not quite ripe.
Just unripe enough to make it on those trips, right? So again, you want to use something like this technology, like Appeal, to keep the apple safe and long enough and worm-free until you can get it right at the right time and then send it off.
It's sort of like taking a steak off of the grill before it's done cooking, because it's going to continue cooking. It's like timing is everything. And I saw a really interesting interview with Neil deGrasse Tyson, where he was speaking to Anthony Bourdain, who posed this notion to deGrasse Tyson that seemed to kind of blow his mind, which usually it's the other way around in terms of minds being blown. But Bourdain said that food in general, and throughout history, it's all about getting it at the perfect level of decay.
Yeah.
Like everything is decaying. And then like when you find the quote, even the word ripe is often used to refer to like corpses, because it is a measure of a level of decay.
Yeah. It's ethylene concentration. If you think about a banana, the reason why the color change on the outside, it is this cool little signal to let the user of said banana to know when it's time. Same to do with the squishiness of that banana. It's time to eat this thing now. But it's not really for that. That's the banana naturally decaying and letting loose some of these chemicals that break down the substances. That's why it smells good. That's why it tastes good.
It's the advertisement to the rest of the natural world.
Eat me.
Come here. Yes.
Let me spread my seed.
Find me. Yes. And poop the seed later.
Seductive banana.
It's true. It's true. Also, lest we slut shame produce here, there is also a fascinating thing with ethylene that we'll get into later. We need to understand there is a reason that certain Fruits in particular will accelerate the ripening process, or the entropy. That's what we're dancing around, the entropy of other pieces of the natural world. Folks try to preserve this. By folks, I mean humans. The first U.S. patent for coating fruits with wax, it dates back to 1922 in the United States. It's a mixture of your old school paraffin wax and kerosene. It's made by a guy named Ernest Brogdon, and absolutely no one thought it was weird that he was spraying fruit with kerosene. They were like, right on, man. Now I can have apples a little later. Now I can have some pears that are not immediately going bad.
Well, that's the thing, too. If you buy stuff like that, or fruit and vegetables from your local farmer's market or from like a farm stand or whatever, and you're not used to doing that, they're going to go bad in a day or so. You know, they're going to go bad in just a couple of days. And that might be surprising to some people who are used to only buying fruits and vegetables from like a giant conglomerate, grocery chain.
Yeah. Most fruits do this on their own. They manufacture or generate their own protective covering. It's a talcum-esque powder made of fat crystals. That's why, like to our earlier example, when you're picking apples from your proverbial tree, they look all pockmarked and scarred and a little bit dusty. Even if you can't find a source of dust, they're generating that covering. It's similar to how chicken eggs need to be refrigerated in, as you said, Noel, a Conglomco store if you purchase them from there. But if you purchase chicken eggs from a guy who just grows chickens, you don't have to refrigerate them.
Yeah. And they're better. Boy, are they better. Like, I'm sorry not to be that guy, but they do taste different. They've got a different color. There's just a vibe to them that feels much better. And I do my best to buy the nicer eggs, I guess, from the grocery store, or the brown kind of quote unquote cage-free ones. But we even know that those situations are not what they seem. You know, the notion of cage-free, it's sort of like loaded. Like, it actually means, sure, they're not like sharing a single cage with like hundreds of chickens, but they're also not just like roaming the wild, hills, like foraging on grain or whatever.
Let's also put out here, we're talking about this kerosene wax mixture that was applied to the exterior of fruits to theoretically preserve them a little bit longer. They make their own essentially protective coating. Many fruits do, and vegetables. Many of them even have a protective coating like a peel, or an exoskeleton of sorts, like a banana, like an avocado, like something like that. But that isn't always sufficient to prevent oxidation. And again, that some of those natural, I keep using ethylene concentrations because one of the things I looked at, I think Pharmazen, one of the things they talk about ethylene a lot. And as you said, Ben, we're going to talk about ethylene gas in a second, because that stuff is dangerous in my opinion. But where was I going, Matt? You were going somewhere. We were going to talk about one of the other big problems that we've had with produce is humanity's attempts to prevent pests from eating all that fruit. We're talking about stuff that's on the outsides of the fruit, something like an orange. Well, you spray some of that stuff down with pesticides, at least historically, humans. And a lot of that stuff is so dangerous and bad for us, even though we have to trust the FDA is saying the concentrations are whatever it is that's safe for us. That's fine. Sure. But there are dangerous substances that have been sprayed in our produce for decades. And I would say, gentlemen, we grew up eating a lot of that pesticide on our fruits and veg.
Oh, yeah. Look how we turned out. Not great.
We're doing all right.
I'm just joking.
Also, we grew up in the time where the FDA's rationale was something like spray whatever you want on the surface of the produce. It has a peel. You just peel off the orange.
Yeah.
Peel,
Or you're going to wash it. Duh. It'll be fine.
Yeah. What are they going to do? Use lemon zest? Are they fancy? This is America.
Ooh, I love lemon zest. Do you guys have like a hardcore policy on washing your produce?
Yes, I wash every single
everything.
piece.
Yes.
Even if it says, we washed it 3 times, you're good.
Smart. Was just interested in your stance on this.
I use water when I wash it.
Ooh, now that
That is a hot
choice.
take, Ben. Way to high road us. You got indoor plumbing? Jeez.
Oh, geez, this guy. So the concept of a peel, the company, right? Not the concept of a peel on a piece of produce. The brand a peel as a threat. It went viral on social media for a couple of reasons. And one of the primary reasons is the visibility of the sticker, which is actually EpiPeel. That's the sticker people were looking at. And it's kind of similar to how folks would allege that Nabisco was some sort of flagship of a Freemason-based Illuminati cabal because of the little stamp on the Oreo cookies, or there
is kind of a seal.
Yeah.
I've never really examined it very closely. Is it nefarious in its depictions?
No, it's literally a thing you would stamp on a cookie to make it distinctive. But the idea is, the argument here is that one could, if one has the right perspective, immediately identify a conspiracy. The problem is real conspiracies don't advertise themselves. Real conspiracies don't have a big symbol that says, hey, look at me, I'm doing evil things. Real conspiracies hide themselves, just like the monopolization of food. Shout out to Dole. Shout out to Nestle. Shout out to Kellanova, right? Shout out to those guys. Who bought Kellanova recently?
Oh, it was that was your story from Strange News.
Yep.
It was Mars. Yes, it was.
Shout out to Mars.
little family outfit, the Mars Corporation.
Yeah, mom and pop.
Well, let's go ahead and quickly say exactly what a peel is. And I think we can use cucumbers, even though it's not the best example, because a peel has mostly been used so far, at least in places like Tesco's, on different types of oranges like mandarins and avocados specifically. But in the United States, they ran tests with this substance, this coating, on cucumbers. And guys, have you ever bought a hothouse cucumber that is wrapped in a really tight plastic wrapping?
Yeah.
It's illegal for you to ask me that.
It's like shrink wrapped, right?
Whenever I'm buying cucumbers for like my son and I will buy that specific type of cucumber. It doesn't matter where it's from. I look for the one that's basically plastic wrapped. And I don't think twice about it. I go, oh, that one's got to be fresh, super fresh. It's wrapped in plastic. And I chop it all up, send it on the way with my son to school. And I consume a bunch of it myself. Well, this appeal is just a coating. It would be a plasticless coating, which sounds good to my ears, that you spray onto that cucumber. And it's made up of mono and diglycerides, which are those same fatty acids that create the natural coatings that most fruits and vegetables have.
Yeah.
So theoretically, a peel is just a little extra natural coating, but it is manufactured vegetable, fruit-based mono and diglycerides.
That's true. It also brings us to another part of the conversation. It is dangerously tempting to see a sticker on a thing, whether that be an apple, a cucumber, a banana, an avocado, and immediately assume, hey, I saw the sticker, I am included in this conspiracy. I am somehow read on. But to be clear, there are produce production conspiracies at play. They're not the kind of things you see advertised with a sticker. We have to talk about ethylene gas, the chemical name C2H4. It's a naturally occurring thing. It's what ripens fruit, what encourages, to Anthony Bourdain's earlier point, the entropy.
Yeah, but you can also use ethylene gas in you can introduce ethylene gas to produce in an environment. Oh, wow. Hey.
Heard my name.
Oh, that's my son. Hey,
Ryder.
he's behind me. He's excited. We're talking about fruits and vegetables, Ryder. How much do you like those cucumbers we get?
I would wish if you salted and peppered them, but
Oh, well, okay. Oh, man.
Lack of seasoning.
It is true.
Dang,
I
hot
do
take.
like how like good and tough they feel.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
just right, but
Perfect. Thank you, buddy. He left me hanging with no high five. That's okay.
Absolute legend. Absolute legend.
So the ethylene gas is something you can do artificially. You can introduce that to, let's say you've got a truckload of, I don't know, what's something, guys, bananas. You got
Here
a
I
truck.
am. My truck of bananas. What am I going to do?
Well, you put it into, you drop that giant container or whatever, all those containers of bananas into a room, then you release ethylene gas. And what that will do is artificially ripen those bananas. But guess what, guys? Ethylene gas doesn't penetrate all the way into the center of that delicious banana. What it does is it makes the exterior nice and ripe to make it look like the banana's ready to eat, even though the inside says, oh, guys, I need another like 5 to 7 days.
Well, one thing I noticed when I was looking into some of this stuff was reports of people saying that they don't think fruit smells anymore. And I think that is directly as a result, because Matt, you had mentioned the ethylene that was naturally produced and the ripeness and the entropy and all of that. That's where the smell comes from. That's where the taste comes from. If these things are being like artificially ripened somewhat, it would totally make sense that they would feel and react and smell and taste differently, have a different texture. It's not cool.
Well, it is different. I appreciate the point you're making there, Noel, about the smell versus the mass market smell versus the farmer's market smell. That's something a lot of people in the U.S. can differentiate from.
Well, yeah, because the ethylene is the thing that makes it, right? We just talked about, like, that smell comes directly from the breakdown. And if the inside isn't breaking down,
then it's going to get a smell. Yeah.
Yeah,
like,
it's fixing the outside of the house without repairing the interior. That's what's happening. And we see also, this is pro tip, by the way, fellow conspiracy realist, this is why you can accelerate the ripening of another fruit by sticking it in a paper bag with a banana. Tomatoes also exhibit emanate, I should say, a lot of ethylene. So you can put a tomato by something and it will ripen more quickly. If you have bananas that seem to be going bad at a cartoonish rate, you might have some tomatoes by them. Just check on that part. It's true. It's a pro tip, but scientists have known about this mechanism for more than, I guess technically in the West, more than a century, but I would say more than several thousand years, because people figured this out pretty quickly. The produce industry has leveraged this in fascinating, problematic ways. We always say it here in English, one bad apple. It turns out that one overripe apple emitting a lot of this gas,
that's what spoils the bunch.
that's what's happening. There is science behind it.
Love that. Did not know. I was today years old. I didn't know the banana trick either, Ben. But this is all good info. But man, we talk a lot too about artificially engineered seeds and things like that, and this just feels like an extension of that, And the idea is it's not in the best interest of these big corporations for the fruit and the vegetables to be in their most natural state, because their priorities are more in how long can we hold on to these before we have to cut our losses. And that's a big deal. I always think about that when I go into a grocery store. I'm like, how is this giant pile of avocados not just rotting, and sometimes they are. And I wonder what the spoilage rate for things like that are. And there are obviously people crunching numbers that are trying to increase those stats to their benefit.
Because I want to bring up one other way that fruit can be artificially ripened. So let's say you ship some stuff from Ecuador, it gets to the United States, gets to a shipping facility, and it's not ripe yet. It's not ready to go out. Another way to do it is to use calcium carbide, which it produces essentially a similar gas, not the same type of gas. I think it's called acetylene gas, It's kind of like ethylene gas, but not quite the same.
Isn't that what goes in welding torches?
Yes.
Holy
yes.
crap.
And it's
It
been
does
banned.
the job.
But use of it for this process has been banned, at least in the United States and in several other countries, but not in some. And it does the same exact thing where you get that exterior ripening, but the interior just isn't ready yet.
And it's important that we mention this because so much goes into the stuff that you run into in your grocery store, folks. Perhaps one of the most dangerous conspiracies is this. There is a concerted effort afoot to make sure that you ignore the human cost of growing these things, of bringing them to you across the planet, out of season, in season. There is no proven conspiracy on the behalf of Appeal or EpiPeel to sterilize people. There's no conspiracy to make you dumber other than the conspiracy that already existed, which is to make you ignore the human cost of these violent ends.
Here. And I think we maybe didn't mention one of the more, I don't know, easily dismissible, I think one could argue, TikTok conspiracy theories here. The actual, like, this is a piece of fruit that is fully made of some sort of polymer. And people, there are videos of people like saying, look, I found this plastic piece of fruit in my order from the grocery store. Though I don't know. Maybe it happens. Maybe some slip in, but I don't think there's a concerted effort for this. But what do you guys think?
What does it taste like?
Rubber. There are allegations that bananas, watermelons, a bunch of other types of fruits show up. People cut into them and show on these, TikTok or Instagram videos, whatever it is, cutting into the thing. And it does look like the meat of the watermelon is made of something else, or it is watermelon-like and it's the right color, but it's not the right texture. And
Okay.
I would posit that these artificial ripening techniques are one of the reasons that we are seeing an uptick in that kind of thing, where that banana is not ready to eat for like a week or two. It wasn't ready to even be picked off of the banana plant yet, but the company needed to get that shipment out, or else there's not going to be enough stuff on the store shelves.
Well, I just think this is a perfect example of, like, this is the truth behind what on the surface is just this easily clickable conspiracy theory. The idea that the fruit manufacturers are replacing the fruit with fake fruit. That, it's much deeper and more specific than that and rooted in the manufacturing process. But I don't think that Dole are shipping out prop bananas.
No. Why would they? They'll just buy another country or overthrow a government.
One other minor angle when it comes to that specific conspiracy theory isn't really related, but I think we should at least mention it here. And that is the fact that produce shipments coming in to the United States, so produce that the United States is importing, are more and more being used by cartels and other organizations to ship narcotics.
Speaking of watermelons, yeah.
Well, watermelons, green beans, celery, squash, jalapeno paste, sugar, bananas. Literally think of a shipment of produce, and there have been narcotics in vast quantities sent over in shipments of this, sometimes packaged separately, sometimes in the vats of jalapeno paste. Like, we're talking bricks of methamphetamine and, giant bags of fentanyl or cocaine that has been made to look like watermelons, like fake paper watermelons that have been painted.
It's comical looking. I'm looking at the pictures right now. They look like they're paper mache or something.
Do you guys want to know one that didn't make the news?
Yeah.
Flower bulbs. There's a huge trade for flowers. The floral industry in the United States gets a lot of stuff from South and Central America. So you could bust, you could, if you were a villain, move things via flower bulb shipments because they're supposed to be fresh, meaning they get some expedited shipping, and a couple of people got caught.
Wow. Well, I'll give you an example from Atlanta from August 13th of this year, 2024. There was a huge shipment of celery that was going to a place called, what is it? Atlanta State Farmers Market in Forest Park.
Yeah, we
And-
mentioned this on Strange News.
Oh, perfect. It was methamphetamine, and it was packaged with the celery, just kind of in there, but it was separated a little bit. The weird one came when I think it was right around that same time, August 22nd, 2024. There was a story about the watermelons that were packaged, that were fake watermelons that had a bunch of drugs in them, alongside regular watermelons that were meant to go to the store. Now, in both of those cases, unfortunately, the real fruits had to get thrown away because they were potentially contaminated, right, by whoever was packaging those drugs. But I don't think this would explain fake looking, tasting, or fake textured fruit. I don't think so, unless there are like fake bananas that came through with a shipment along with the real bananas, and the fake ones were used to hide the drug shipment that went past, customs or something. And then somehow accidentally a couple of crates of fake bananas got in with the real ones. But I don't think that happened.
Aren't there like customs stickers like on those fake watermelons, or there's like tape wrapped around them? Is that real, or is that is that fake too? Like, they obviously made it pretty far through the whole inspection process.
Oh, yeah. Let's do it this way. Have you ever eaten a banana only to find that it was methamphetamine? If so, write to us, Illumination Global Unlimited. Brought to you by your friends at Stuff They Don't Want You to Know. We hope you enjoyed this episode. We can't wait to hear your thoughts. We try to be easy to find online.
You can find us at the handle Conspiracy Stuff, where we exist on Facebook. We have our Facebook group, Here's Where It Gets Crazy. On X, FKA Twitter, and on YouTube, where we have video content galore. On Instagram and TikTok, however, we are Conspiracy Stuff Show.
What is your experience with weirdly coated and or textured fruits and vegetables? Why don't you call us and tell us about it? 1-833-STDWYTK. When you call in, you've got 3 minutes. Exactly 3 minutes, actually. So let's say 2 minutes 59. And give yourself a cool nickname. Let us know if we can use your name and message on the air. If you got more to say than can fit in that voicemail, why not instead send us a good old-fashioned email? We are
the entities that read every piece of correspondence we receive. Be well aware yet unafraid. Sometimes the void writes back. Conspiracy@iHeartRadio.com.
Stuff They Don't Want You to Know is a production of iHeartRadio. For more podcasts from iHeartRadio, visit the iHeartRadio app, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to your favorite shows.